Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 4. Now let's start the fanfic. All of them waited with held breaths, wanting to know what the blonde enigma was trying to achieve by closing his eyes in the midst of a match. All of their eyes widened when they felt the sudden increase of chakra from the Naruto, the effects of the white chakra flowing in waves in the arena. Just like in the forest, all of them felt at peace, comfortable while warmness flowed through their bodies. What is this feeling? It's so calm, peaceful, serene, comfortable. But what's happening here? Thought May while Naruto's eyes were still closed for the dramatic effect. He couldn't see their faces, but at least he could imagine it. Meanwhile, all of the Junins, Chunins, Genins and the three cages welcomed and basked in this strange aura with a mix of confusion. It's just like in the forest, but this time it is much stronger, thought the Genins and Kurenai, who had experienced this firsthand in the forest of death, except Sasuke, who was confused as hell as to what was going on, while he could feel his curse mark acting negatively towards this chakra. Orochimaru too was wide-eyed at this strange peaceful aura, surprised and confused that Naruto's chakra is able to produce such effects. If his chakra would have radiated bloodlust, he could understand, as Naruto was a Jinchuriki and his chakra could have been tainted by the Kyuubi, but this was completely unexplainable. This chakra is the exact opposite of Yuki, but still is strong and dense. You truly are interesting, Naruto-kun. If only you had a promising bloodline, I would have preferred your body instead of Sasuke-kun. Although I'm still not able to decipher as to how you're able to use ice element at such age, but you just maybe be my next vessel if Sasuke-kun fails, he thought with an inward sinister laugh. Mizukage-sama, this is I am impossible. This Jigaki has white sea-colored chakra, it's not normal blue, said Ao in astonishment, his Byakugan activated while Mei and Chojiro's eyes widened further, if it was even possible. But how can it be possible, Ao senpai? Stuttered Chojiro timidly, voicing what Mei wanted to say while Ao just shook his head to signify that he had no idea whatsoever. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. Some of the Junins straightaway fainted from shock who knew about Rinnegan and thought about it as only a myth. It was like a bombshell being dropped on everyone present there except the Ice Queens and Hiruzen. Some were surprised that he had a bloodline and a dujutsu at that, and the experienced Junins and the two cages were astounded to the limit of infinity as they thought of Rinnegan as only a myth. Purple eyes, black dot pupil with one ring surrounding it, it was clear as a day for those who had read about his legendary dujutsu. His eyes seemed to have a purple glow, possibly because of excess flow of chakra through his optical chakra coils. The expression on Orochimaru's face was priceless. It was like Itachi himself was offering him the Sharingan. How is this possible? 2 Rinnegan users. I thought only Pain possessed it, but he has 3 rings while this Jinchuriki has only 1, which means he still hasn't tapped its full potential. Although I still prefer Sharingan to copy ninjutsu, but I think I'll give my present to Naruto-kun and the Hyuga heiress. Just imagine, having all the 3 great dujutsus in my possession will make me the strongest shinobi alive, and with eternal Mangekyo Sharingan I'll be immortal. Kukuku, he thought while inwardly cackling to himself. I still can't control the amount of chakra I put behind my eyes to activate Rinnegan, leading to them glowing a bit, which can be dangerous for me in sneak missions at nights. Although my chakra control is much better than before, but considering that my chakra reserves increased too, my chakra control still needs vast amounts of improvement, he thought while mentally making notes as to in what areas he would need to work extensively. He was brought out of his thoughts when he heard an excited shout. Yosh, Naruto-kun! Your flames of youth are glowing in your eyes. We shall fight an honest and a sweaty battle to determine who is better, said Lee while pumping his fists in air, leading to Naruto's eyebrows getting twitched in irritation. Seriously, is there anything that can surprise this guy? But I wonder how Sasuke and Itachi would sound like if they acted like Lee and his sensei here. Oh, I know. HN Itachi-kun. Your flames of youth have dampened. How dare you pour unyouthful water on our arrogance flaming, Sharingan blazing, Jutsu Crazin, Fugaku mothering, piece of, youthful clan. I will distinguish your unyouthful existence with my youthful Sharingan. Foolish little brother. You do not have enough youthful flames of hatred, and you know what? Your flames of will always be weak. But do not worry Sasuke-kun, I will cleanse you of your unyouthful. Kisame-kun, give me the Samahata. Yeah baby. Samahata shaves. You know what? He. I wonder if should write a book like the Toad Sanin, whose title would be, Ika Uchiha Kill the Traitor Tactics starring Emo Uchiha and an Emo Tionless Uchiha. Yeah, it would be a widespread sale on the scale of epidemic. Damn, I need to concentrate. There's a match going on, but geez. How much time will these guys keep staring at me like that? It's not like I slaughtered the Hyuga clan by myself in one night, he thought before observing Lee's underdeveloped chakra coils. Meanwhile, it looked like nobody was ready to move on. Kakashi had both of his eyes widened along with Sakura, who was sputtering incoherently, and Sasuke, who must have been thinking, this shit got no dibs on Sharingan, it's the best yo. Both A and Mei turned their heads to look at Hiruzen for answers, who only said one word, later, before they looked towards the blonde Gaki again, not in the mood to argue with the Hokage when there's an interesting match going on. I can't believe it. After so many years, it has been awakened. Ooh kitten. Look how sexy he looks with those dominating eyes, come on, you gotta snatch him before anybody else does. I wonder if he's as much dominating in bed, purred Nibby inside Yugito's head, who was blushing a storm, so surprised that she couldn't even berate her Biju. Meanwhile Shukaku was screaming in Gaara's head to stay away from those eyes, while Hachibi too, although not on a psychotic scale like Shukaku, but still warned B to be wary of this Gaki. Meanwhile, Naruto had decided that it was time to continue the match before he created a shadow clone, again surprising the visitors Raikage, Mizukage and their groups. Dosu's eyes widened when the shadow clone completely disappeared from his vision, while Lee could still see him as he was used to such speed movements. The clone suddenly appeared in front of Dosu, startling him before giving him a uppercut leading to the sound Genin loosing some teeth and propelling towards the ceiling. Just as he was about to crash, the clone again appeared in a blur before delivering a lethal dropkick to his midsection, leading to Dosu getting the wind knocked out of him. Such was the force of the blow that he disappeared in a blur before crashing on the floor, creating a crater. Dosu couldn't move, blood was leaking out of his mouth, his eyes half-lidded, and multiple bruises covered his body. He knew several bones in his body were broken and was in a whole world of pain right now. His eyes again widened when he felt the cold metal of a kunai pressed against his neck by the clone, who seemingly had appeared out of nowhere. That was for how you treated Kin Chan Yu. And if you ever treat her like that again, there'll be hell to pay, you got that? Whispered the clone fiercely while adding chakra to his Rinnegan, which glowed further, adding to his threatening glare, while Dosu could only nod, the small action in itself sending jolts of pain throughout his body. Now are you gonna give up, or should I just finish you off? He said, pressing the kunai further, drawing a thin line of blood from his skin. P. Proctor. I give up, he said in rasped breaths, barely able to speak before slipping into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, the spectators were again stunned by the speed and the brutality of the hits that Naruto had delivered to the poor Genin, although he only delivered 2 hits. Raikage had a knowing smirk on his face, excited to see a taijutsu spar that he knew would be coming. So far he had seen that the green weird Genin only used taijutsu, whereas the Hokage had explained to him that he couldn't use genjutsu or ninjutsu. And with the speed that the weirdo was moving, he knew the Kyuubi Jinchuriki wouldn't be able to complete hand signs for ninjutsu or genjutsu, so he too would have to resort to taijutsu. He was ecstatic. Very much so. Kin too was silently cheering for Naruto and was quite happy with the blows Dosu received from him, even though it was not enough payment for how he beated her almost every day. She was just happy that Naruto cared for her. Sasuke, as usual being his emo self, was gritting his teeth in frustration and anger towards Naruto. How dare the Dobi outclass him? Sakura had admiration in her eyes, but she, along with almost everyone, still hadn't gotten over the shock that Naruto possessed a dujutsu. Kakashi didn't know if his eyes would return to normal size anytime soon, as they just kept widening with the things that Naruto was pulling out there. Although he knew Naruto had talent as he had helped him in training in private, but this was ridiculous. How could he have gotten so much strong, and his appearance too? He was just praying that these preliminaries would end up as soon as possible so he could get some answers. The Ice Queens were watching with proud smiles on their faces while their eyes held love, admiration and lust, something which was only reserved for Naruto. Are you watching this, Shinane-chan? Your son is kicking some serious here. You would be proud at how Naru-kun is turning out to be, thought Enko with a serene smile, while tears threatened to pour out of her chocolate brown eyes. She wanted so much for Naruto to meet his mother, but fate deemed it impossible after all, and she was sounding like a certain Hyuga now. She quickly focused on the match, ing up on her tears as she had a bad image to maintain. Meanwhile, Samui had a small blush on her face while her eyes held somewhat akin to admiration as well as frustration. Admiration because of how strong Naruto was despite how the villagers treated him, and frustration because ever since she saw him, this damn blush wouldn't go away. Seriously, what was wrong with her? She was regarded as the next Ice Queen after Yugito in her village, and this boy, no man, was able to do that with just his looks, without even speaking. And his smile, damn. How cute can he look more? Wasn't his handsome face enough already? His muscular, but not overly, slim-toned body wasn't doing any justice to her hormones too. And damn, oh my god, she was sounding like a pervert now. Nay Samui, how come your icy cheeks are suddenly so red? Asked Karui with a knowing grin while Samui was caught off guard with her comment. What do why you mean? She stuttered while Karui's grin widened. Oh, nothing, really nothing, said Karui with her teasing grin while Samui inwardly groaned. She knew she was in for a whole world of teasing once the preliminaries ended. The way you said nothing, it certainly sounded like something, said Omoi while eating his lollipop, before a vein popped on Karui's forehead. Shutuk baka, she said while hitting him over the head, before his beloved lollipop again popped out of his mouth and fell on the dirty floor. Would you stop doing that? Now my lolly-chan is all dirty now, he yelled at her heatedly while she again yelled at him. I would stop if you wouldn't act like an idiot. Their foreheads grinding against each other, sparks flying out from the friction if that was even possible, while the nearby Junins looked at the pair awkwardly, the others too focused on the match to see anything else. Meanwhile, Yugito was blushing up a storm from the constant ramblings by her perverted two-tailed demon, and could only put her hands on her cheeks to hide it. Don't hide ya blush on her cheek, ya should have a pervy peak, rapped the Hachibi Jinchuriki, followed by a bonk on the head from a flustered Yugito. Geez, wasn't her pervert of a biju not enough? Come on Lee, are you planning on just standing there all day, yelling about your flames of youth? Said Naruto mockingly while Lee's face suddenly took an uncharacteristic serious expression. I'll defeat you with everything I have, Naruto-kun, he said fiercely while Naruto just created some shadow clones. They all grinned at Lee before vanishing from the Genin's sight while Lee too disappeared in a blur. Both sides threw punches and kicks towards each other, which were mainly a blur to the genins. They would only appear for a while before again vanishing and continuing with their reckless attacks, as Shikamaru would say it. Lee was surprised that Naruto and his shadow clones were easily dodging and countering his attacks, earlier of which he couldn't even see. Lee suddenly ducked under a punch before back-flipping away from Naruto, who just stood there while he dispelled the remaining shadow clones. I see that we're evenly matched in speed, Naruto-kun. Indeed, you're a worthy opponent, said Lee before gazing towards Guy, as if asking for permission for something while his sensei, who was uncharacteristically serious, nodded. Yosh, Naruto-kun. Now you'll see the springtime of youth. I think this match has dragged on for much longer. It's time to end this, said Lee while Naruto wondered what else could the taijutsu genin be hiding under his belt. Meanwhile, Kakashi had suspected about Lee's next attack and was currently explaining that to Sakura and Sasuke, the latter having a maniacal glint in his eyes about possibly getting more power. Lee held his elbows in cross position in front of his chest, while his face was scrunched up in concentration. Hinata's eyes widened, who had her second level of Byakugan activated for the time being, when she saw his first chakra gate slowing opening. Naruto, Kakashi, Sasuke and Neji couldn't see that much detail as Hinata's eyes, but they could see the sudden increase in chakra flow when Lee whispered. Kaiman. Kai, gate of opening. Release. Naruto's eyes widened while Lee's muscles could be seen bulging a bit along with increased chakra flow. He had read about the 8 chakra gates during his secret study hours he spent in library, but it was a forbidden technique, wasn't it? Shit. That was unexpected. I wonder how many gates is he able to open at this point of time. But, if he's going that far, I guess I should go further too, thought Naruto before a look of concentration formed on his face, his elbows on his side before a blue sparking electricity started covering his fist. Lightning fist, he whispered while the Raikage and his companions had their jaws on the ground when they saw the blue layer of sparking lightning completely covering Naruto's hands. Holy shit. That's my technique, although an incomplete one. Mine too looked like that when I was developing it. But I've never taught this technique to anyone. Could it be that he developed this himself? Even covering your hands with lightning-natured chakra takes almost an year to accomplish, just what this kid is actually capable of. I don't know about Chunin, but he easily equals an elite Chunin, thought a while Hiruzen just had calm look on his face, taking into account just what Naruto had learned in that training with Itachi. Meanwhile, Mei was desperately trying to not look surprised with what both the genins were pulling out there. Nope. I'm not impressed at all. Yep. This is nothing. Yep. Oh my god, how can he open chakra gates at such? Nope. Nothing at all. He must be much older than he looks. Yep, I bet he is. He's just under a sort of transformation jutsu. But that blonde Gaki looks so hot with that lightning. No. It's probably just a genjutsu. Kai. Damn it. Thought Mei with a cheery smile while inwardly she was crying anime tears. She was known in her village for her calm, composed and cheery temper after all. She couldn't just be anxious about something so trivial, right? The gates, she could understand as the green karate kid was extremely good in taijutsu and could probably match most of the Chunins. But what was with that blonde Gaki? Almost all the techniques he had used up until now were suicidal even for Chunins. He was a Jinchuriki she could understand, but even they had their limits and he was only 12 or 13 years old for heaven's sake. Kaiyuman. Kai, gate of rest. Release, whispered Lee while chakra was visible now around him in a sheen layer having a blue hue while Naruto just waited for him patiently, who had already decided that he would be using his full speed now. Simon. Kai, gate of life. Release, again said the green-clad genin while his hair started wavering in midair, The air got thicker around him with the color density of the chakra layer getting increased and his pupils were no longer visible. Dust was picking up around him violently while all the genins watched this in awe, wondering if they even had a chance if they had fought any two of these. They seemed to be in a whole other league. Lee looked up with his pupil-less white eyes, his skin taking on a slight red hue before he again blurred out of Genin's sight completely with much greater speed than before. Even some of the low-level Junins were having trouble spotting him, while Samui, Karui and Darui couldn't even see him unlike before. The Genins were clueless as before as to where Lee was while Sasuke was barely able to keep up with him even with his Sharingan, although Kakashi could easily see him even with his eye as he was an elite Junin for a reason. The Ice Queens being the prodigies too were easily able to keep track of Lee but were shocked at his speed and couldn't help but worry for Naruto. Even Kurenai had doubts if Naruto could move that fast. Lee suddenly appeared behind Naruto going for a kick at the back of his head and to everyone's shock and amazement, Naruto ducked before planting a spinning kick on Lee's stomach sending him crashing him into the wall. Never underestimate your opponent's bushy brow, especially me, said Naruto with a serious expression on his face, again surprising everyone with his speed. Meanwhile Guy had a shocked expression on his face. Never did he thought that a genin would be able to match the power of not one, but 3 celestial gates. He is something else. The villagers treat him like he's a loser but look at him now. He's kicking my strongest student 7 when he is in celestial gate mode, thought Guy with a hidden smirk, mainly because he cared for Naruto, although not on the level of Lee but still he knew what the Jinchuriki had to go through in his life. He was grinning in anticipation as to how Naruto would handle himself when Lee goes further. Meanwhile Lee too was surprised with the strength that Naruto had kicked him with, it was much greater than before. He's able to keep up with me even when I'm in celestial mode, and the strength in that kick was much greater than before. Was he holding back too? You truly are the strongest opponent I could have gotten, Naruto-kun, thought Lee with a smirk while wiping the blood off his face, the layer of chakra around him flaring as he stood up while he could feel the second gate healing his injuries. It's only because of the Rinnegan that I'm able to see his movements. What if I had never even activated this Dujutsu? Was I that weak? He would have beaten me in a blink. I don't want to rely on my Dujutsu for everything. How am I to become Hokage if I rely so heavily on Rinnegan and not do any hard work to hone my skills? That's the main reason I guess no one from the Uchiha clan could become Hokage except maybe Uchiha Makoto, known as the Kami no Kawarimi, god of substitution, for she had her own skills besides the Sharingan, he thought while clenching his fists, hating the fact that he has to rely on Rinnegan just to see his movements. Never keep your eyes off the enemy, Naruto-kun, especially me, retorted Lee in a whisper after appearing behind Naruto, whose eyes were widened before he felt an excruciating pain in his back, result of Lee kicking him as hard as he could. Naruto was sent flying towards the wall at high speeds. Shit. How could I lose focus in the middle of a fight? He thought while berating himself before Lee suddenly again appeared in front of him, giving him an uppercut to his jaw sending Naruto upwards in midair. While Naruto was horizontally in midair, Lee was suddenly behind Naruto in a flash before wrapping the white bandages around his body which were earlier on his forearms. All of this had happened in span of a second for the spectators, such was the speed of their movements while the next thing the genin could see was Naruto wrapped in bandages from Lee behind him, both of them descending fast towards the floor while rotating. Omid Renge, Hidden Lotus, yelled Lee as their speed of descending increased while they continued to rotate. Just one moment of lost focus can cost you dearly, Naruto-kun, and now you'll pay the price for it, thought Guy while the Ice Queens kept a neutral face on the outside but were worried sick for him. They knew if that attack was successful Naruto wouldn't be getting up soon, even with his fast recovering rates. It's over, Naruto-kun, said Lee while Naruto just smirked. Lee's along with everyone's eyes widened when some of the small chunks of wall that were lying on the floor due to the fights puffed in smoke to reveal shadow clones, who formed a circle surrounding the center of where Lee and Naruto were anticipated to crash. All of the clones did fast hand seals, much faster than before, putting large amounts of chakra, ending on the snake seal before they yelled in chorus. Rantan. Zufukufu Bufusetsu, storm release. Amplifying wind blizzard, as suddenly the wind around them started to form a rotating fierce whirlwind at the center, carrying currents of blue electricity and grew in size to that of a small tornado. Lee's eyes widened when he felt their speed slowing down at fast rates before both of them started to rotate with the whirlwind. Lee grit his teeth when he felt the sharp currents of lightning in the wind attack him. It felt like 1,000 needles were piercing him, while he was surprised when Naruto remained completely unaffected from the jutsu. Immediately loosening his wrappings around Naruto, Lee used his super speed in the celestial gate mode to escape the raging storm. Everyone present had to shield their eyes off the dust and wind that seemed to raging in the arena, putting large cuts and gashes on the wall and concrete floor. Raikage's eyes widened when he saw the electricity in the wind. What? This is not the storm element that Darui uses. The Gaki is using wind with lightning here, while Darui uses water with lightning to form laser-like attacks, but this storm element is much better for wide-range attacks, he thought, while Yugito and B were having thoughts along the same line. What power? Said Ao while shielding his eyes, easily able to see with his Byakugan the huge amount of chakra that the blonde Jinchuriki had put up in that jutsu. Meanwhile, Mei had decided that she just had to meet this Jinchuriki. There was something about besides his looks that attracted her to him, she just had this urge to know him. He was different from anyone she'd ever met, the kind of power he possessed at such young age, she would have expected that he would flaunt his skills. But from the start of the match, he was calm, composed and not easy to anger. Although sometimes, he lacked focus, but considering what he had went through his life, there must be an inferno going in his head, or maybe the Kyuubi could be the reason for this, she didn't know, but was dying to meet him. Meanwhile, the Ice Queens were stunned at the damage level the attack had caused. All the walls were tattered with multiple deep cuts, while a deep crater had formed on the floor where the epicenter of the supposed whirlwind was. Considering the amount of cuts on the wall, they could tell that this attack was capable of taking out large number of enemies simultaneously. Slowly the whirlwind died down to show Naruto standing at the center of it, apparently unharmed, while Lee could be seen standing at a distance from him, having multiple cuts and bruises all over his body. His green spandex was teared in multiple places while blood was leaking out of his forehead, whereas Lee was panting a bit from the strain the third gate was starting to put on him. Give up, Lee. I can see that opening the forbidden chakra gates are starting to put strain on your body. This match is over, it's not worth to put your career at risk, said Naruto with an emotionless tone, while inwardly he was a bit worried for the guy. Of course, Lee was a weird, loudmouth, sometimes irritating, but he had come to like the genin as he saw himself in Lee. Although Lee acted crazy with the flames of youth, crap and all, but Naruto could see that he had a good heart and didn't want him to put his ninja career at risk just for a preliminary match, as Naruto was pretty sure with skills that Lee had displayed in front of the three cages, he was sure to progress to the finals, so there was no need for him to push himself past his body limits. No, I will prove myself, and I wouldn't find a better opponent. To do so, prepare yourself, Naruto-kun, said Lee while panting as he again crossed his arms in front of his face. Showman. Kai, gate of wound. Release, said Lee while his muscles bulged further, his veins now visible while the chakra around him flared much greater than before, his skin's shade of red darkening while the ground started to crack under his feet. Naruto was thrown for the loop when he saw Lee opening the fourth gate. He had read that beyond the third gate, although you gain further speed and power, but the body muscles begin to tear under the pressure of so much chakra being released at once. He was about to yell when Lee screamed. Toman. Kai. Gate of limit. Release. Dust spun wildly around his feet, a small crater forming under his feet, the density of chakra increasing further while his hair flowing upwards due to the force of excess chakra. His muscles started to further expand as the veins were now more visible on his skin, while Lee winced when he felt the pressure being exerted on his muscles. This guy's crazy. Does he want to die or better, does he want to kill me? He's taking it too far. I can already see his muscles starting to rip apart. I was giving my all in taijutsu when he had the third gate opened, but I wouldn't even be able to see him now, much less match his speed. I can't even do hand seals for ninjutsu if he's that fast. I think I have to use Ayumi-chan's chakra, for mine as well as for his sake, thought Naruto while panicking a bit. He didn't want to use Ayumi's chakra, but the situation here called for him to finish the match as fast as possible. Lee, you were this powerful all along, thought a surprised Neji. He had never thought that Lee could become this much powerful with hard work alone. But he was curious as to what fate had in store for his green-clad teammate. I don't think I can match him in taijutsu any longer, then I'll just have to resort to a combination of ninjutsu and taijutsu, thought our favorite blonde before putting his hands in a crisscross sign, using large amounts of chakra. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multi-shadow clone jutsu, he said, the result of which everyone's eyes getting out of their sockets except the ones who knew about his expertise in this jutsu, but even they were surprised that he still had this much chakra left after using jutsus which would have easily exhausted a Chunin. The whole arena was filled with white trenchcoat wearing blondes wearing smirk on their faces. The floor where the match was taking place was completely occupied by his clones. Some of them were standing on upper railings, some of them sitting leisurely on the large ram handseal, some of them standing upside down on the ceiling while the rest of them were standing among the Chunins and the three cages, who had their jaws on the floor. Yo! All the clones chorused except the original Naruto, who was panting a bit, as using sub-elemental as well as the elemental jutsus along with his average chakra control took a toll on him, while Kakashi just sweat dropped. That's my line, he thought while shaking his head at the antics of his sensei's legacy, or rather his clones. This kid just doesn't stop surprising me, thought with an amused grin before he was interrupted. Hey muscle man, give us some space will ya? It's tight around here, said a clone among the others while A's eyebrows twitched at the nickname, whereas Yugito, Mei and Karui giggled while Samui had a smirk on her face. It's not my fault you created so many clones, Gaki, replied a heatedly while a vein popped on his forehead when he saw the middle finger in front of his face, courtesy of the same clone. Up yours he said while Mei and Yugito couldn't hold it in and burst out laughing. It wasn't every day you see a genin insulting a cage fearlessly, whereas a just punched the clone leading to it getting dispelled, a furious expression on the Raikage's face. Don't take it personally, Raikage Dono. Sometimes some of his clones have their own individual personality traits, which I've no idea how's that possible, said a chuckling Hiruzen while a just took deep breaths to calm himself, Mei and Yugito still snickering lightly, which was stopped by a glare from A. Mei turned around when she felt someone tap on her shoulder, to come face to face with yet another clone who gave her a charming smile leading to a blush adorning the cheeks of the beautiful redhead. You're the famed Godime Mizukage of Kurigakure no Sato, I presume? He asked while Mei gave him her cheerful smile. This time the clone blushed. Yeah, she replied cheerfully while both of them wore a challenging smirk inwardly. Come on, you think you can make me blush and get away with it, she thought with an inward smirk. Is that so, huh? I accept your challenge, thought the clone, before he took Mei's soft hand and kissed the top of it. Ao and Chojiro's jaw dropped in astonishment that someone had the balls to do that to their Mizukage while Mei's face was as red as tomato, she certainly didn't expected him to do that. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, pleased to meet your acquaintance, he said, yet again smiling charmingly at her while she could only stutter in response. Terumi Mei, Ao and Chojiro had shocked look on their faces. No one was able to do that to their Mizukage as long as they could remember. It was like seeing Kisame crying over his broken teeth. You there, popsicle guy, said yet another clone while a lollipop-ing Omoi turned around to see an anxious-looking clone. You shouldn't eat lollipops as they contain artificial flavored sweetener which may affect your taste buds, liver and your stomach leading to digestion problems, which can further lead to constipation and affect your overall performance during the missions. And if you fail any important mission, your village may get in trouble or you may get demoted leading to the destruction of your entire ninja career, he said anxiously while flailing his arms, whereas Omoi had an equally anxious look on his face when he understood the gravity of this ridiculous situation while Karui's eyebrows were twitching dangerously at having another anxious freak. Omoi nodded at the clone silently before turning towards Karui who had murder in her eyes, if he annoyed the crap out of her. I think he's right, but do I sound that ridiculous? He asked in a hushed tone while Karui bomped him on the head. Of course you baka. Took you a while to figure out didn't it? She yelled while Omoi just clamped his ears further pissing her off. Well that aside Lee had a surprised look on his face like everyone else but was brought out of his stupor when he felt the pain searing in his muscles before he completely vanished from everyone's sight except maybe elite Junins in the cages. The clones began to dispel at astounding rates, courtesy of Lee who was eliminating all the clones like they were nothing, but this was all the time the original Naruto needed as a red chakra cloak started to slowly form around his body. Everyone's eyes widened when they felt the evil and the malicious aura radiating off Naruto. Those who knew about the Kyuubi were shocked to no end to see a Jinchuriki this young, willingly using his Biju's chakra, and Kyuubi at that who was said to be the most difficult one to tame. Even Hiruzen didn't see this one coming, he had no idea that the boy could willingly harness the demonic chakra. This is amazing, at such young age, stuttered Yugito, who couldn't believe her eyes while Nibi was constantly screaming in her head to claim him as her mate. The only one who wasn't surprised was Kakashi, as he was the one who helped Naruto in controlling his Yuki after the wave mission. Seeing Lee's speed, he was kinda expecting him to do this. Naruto dispelled his remaining clones while Lee was on his knees from the pain and was watching him in astonishment, that he still had chakra left, although he had no idea why it was red. Lee's eyes widened when he noticed Naruto's transformed features, mainly his eyes, Rinnegan still activated. They were blood red, one black ring surrounding a small black slitted pupil. Kitten. He looks so hot. You've got to claim him, if not then let me out and I'll do it myself, yelled Nibi in excitement, her demonic urges making her want to bang him as long as he was conscious while a blushing Yugito just continued to ignore her. Meanwhile Hinata had slipped into unconscious some time ago, mainly due to fatigue, both physically and emotional and chakra exertion. I've gotta make this quick, don't want the likes of Shikamaru to suspect anything, although I think I'm already under his suspicious gaze. I'll just have to use that move to finish this. I'm sorry bushy brow, but this may hurt worse than your hidden lotus, he thought before creating several Yuki-enforced shadow clones while he himself charged his hands with lightning-natured chakra to prepare for his final attack. Lee was just about to take a mad dash towards Naruto when he felt himself flying in midair while his eyes widened at the pain he was feeling, courtesy of an extremely fast shadow clone delivering a quick uppercut to his jaw while the other shadow clones jumped towards him before delivery a combined painful leg drop resulting in him falling towards the floor at a fast rate. Now, thought the original Naruto before using a chakra-enhanced jump towards the ceiling while Lee was falling. The shadow clones in midair dispelled themselves while the shadow clone who had uppercut him was standing at the exact spot where Lee was falling. Just as Lee was about to collide, the doppelganger standing below him yelled, "Shinra Tensei! Divine Judgment!" The effects were immediate as Lee was propelled upwards at high speeds, much to the extreme shock of everyone except Hiruzen. Meanwhile, the original Naruto, who had jumped towards the ceiling, used it as a springboard using chakra on his feet to increase the recoil power before he was on a collision course with Lee, both of them moving towards each other at high speeds, invisible to almost everyone except the elite Junins and the cages. While in midair, Naruto started to spin just like in Gatsuga. The lightning-natured chakra and the Yuki flared while both of his fists were pointed at Lee's fastly approaching body. His quickly descending body looked like it was on fire to everyone, mainly because of Yuki and his extremely fast velocity before he yelled, "Akuma no Raiko Kobushi, Ryusei Kokusukuru." Demonic Lightning Fist. Corkscrew Meteor. All of this combo had happened in a span of 2 to 3 seconds in front of eyes before Naruto's fist came in contact with Lee's body, the green taijutsu genin spitting blood due to painful blow before they began to descend at the ground level at extremely high speeds, resulting in a violent crash shaking the cores of the arena. Boom. Such was the impact of their crash that large chunks of earth flew out of the smoke due to the impact. While everyone had to shield their eyes from the debris, it felt like an earthquake had struck. Along with B had their jaws on the ground. It was the most lethal taijutsu move that they had ever seen. They could only hope that the green kid was alive. Such destructive move, but Lee should pull out. He's had worse than this in his training, thought an impressed guy. He was a bit sad that his student lost as he knew there was no way he was coming out of that in fighting condition, but not every day you get to see an attack like this and from a genin all the more. Gaara had an astonished look on his face. He now himself was doubting if he would be able to beat his fellow Jinchuriki. Shukaku had told him Naruto was the host of Kyuubi no Kitsune when Naruto was releasing Ayumi's chakra, much to the shock of the sand user. Naruto, what the, thought Copy Ninja, not even able to think properly at the moment, while Sasuke had a look of extreme frustration and hate, his teeth gritted and fists clenched by his side. Sakura, Kin, Temari and Ino had looks of awe and admiration on their faces. Asuma's cigarette had fallen from his mouth in shock, which was in way much more shocking for his team and fellow Junins as his cigarette was just like Omoi's lollipop to him. The Ice Queens had a look of utter surprise on their faces just like Mei, Yugito and Samui. Meanwhile the smoke cleared out for them to see a barely conscious, bruised and tattered body of Lee, almost like he was embedded in the crater, while a panting Naruto could be seen standing beside him while blood was seeping from his mouth before he deactivated his dujutsu, the red chakra as well as lightning chakra no longer present. Hayate had an astonished look on his face when he saw Naruto. He can still stand after that attack, thought the proctor before slowly approaching them as he had distanced himself from the crazy fight that was covering the whole arena. Damn, that attack took a lot out of me. Good thing I held back or else he would have been killed, but still this move was tougher than I thought. Guess it's not the same as memorizing the attack than actually doing it. I still need to go a long way. If I find an opponent as fast as Lee, my entire ninjutsu arsenal is almost useless. I'll have to increase the speed of hand seals. But still, I never thought I'd find someone as strong as Lee in these exams, except maybe Gaara to give me such a hard time, he thought while inwardly sighing to himself before he bent besides Lee, who was barely conscious and in a whole lot of pain. That W was a great fight. N Naruto-kun, said Lee with a small smile while coughing painfully, his one eye closed while almost half of his face was covered in blood. Naruto was going to bonk him on the head if not for his injuries for being so reckless and going as far as opening the fifth gate. Why? Why did you go so far, you idiot? You knew that you would progress to the finals with the skills you displayed, then why? Why did you put your body to risk? I didn't want to use this move on you. It's very lethal and destructive, but with you using the fifth gate I had to do it, said Naruto apologetically while Hayate was standing near them, hearing their conversation with interest whereas Lee just offered him a pained smile. Inwardly smacking his head, Naruto started applying his special chakra on his body leading to the drastic reduction of pain while Lee's eyes just widened but he didn't ask anything. Seeing what Naruto was pulling today he could believe almost anything. He wasn't an idiot, though he acted like one, but still he wasn't an idiot. Hee. Just for the same reason as you, Naruto-kun. I wanted recognition, wanting to prove myself to the world that I can be a good shinobi with just taijutsu, he said, still in pain but much less than before while Naruto's eyes widened. Bushy brow. Hey, you baka. You're already very strong. Your strongest opponent I could have gotten here, he said while grinning whereas moisture gathered in Lee's eyes who grinned back at him. Arigato Naruto-kun. From now on, you're my eternal rival, he said before passing out while Naruto just sweat dropped before chuckling to himself. Yeah, but that's something I don't look forward to, he said, still chuckling to himself while remembering the famed Kakashi-Guy rivalry of Konoha and the ridiculous challenges of Guy. Hayate just smiled at their exchange. The will of fire burned brightly in those two and if he knew any better, they definitely deserved the title of Chunin. Winner. Uzumaki Naruto, he yelled while instead of some cheers which Hayate expected, there was just stunned silence. No one could still come out of their respective shocks. This fight was something else. It had easily crossed the boundaries of a genin-level fight. Meanwhile Naruto just blinked before he stood up. He was so focused in the match that he forgot to see their shocked faces, but now he was thoroughly enjoying himself. What? I think we fought just fine to deserve some clapping, didn't we? Yelled Naruto for everyone to hear while giving his foxy grin, breaking everyone out of their shocks, some of them blushing in embarrassment. What? You expect Guy to have a blush on his face? And began clapping for him. The medics came before carefully putting Lee on the stretcher and leaving the arena while Naruto bowed dramatically to them. Upon seeing the names starting to flash randomly, he walked slowly to the elevated platform, ignoring the looks of shock, and chose to stand alone for a while, avoid the questions he knew would be coming, and just observe the matches. Time skip. 1 hour later. Naruto was bored out of his mind. Currently the secondly last had just finished. After his fight, the only match he found a bit interesting was Shino vs. Gaara vs. Yoroi, which was right after his match, but that too was quickly over as he deduced that Yoroi was a chakra leecher, so the moment he tried to absorb Gaara's chakra, he also absorbed some of the Yuki. The results was immediate as he screamed in agony before slipping into unconsciousness. Shino too couldn't do much with his insects as they were not able to absorb Gaara's harmful chakra, though the bug user did try everything he could, but he just couldn't penetrate Gaara's sand defense. So in the end, Gaara was going to kill him, but Shino, being the smart self, immediately forfeit the match, but that didn't stop the Jinchuriki from trying to kill him with his Sabaku Susu, Desert Funeral. However, the timely intervention from the Junins saved the bug users. The next two matches were even more boring. After Gaara's match, the next match was Shikamaru vs. Tamari vs. Ino, but he was interested at first as to how they would fight their own teammates. He was surprised to see the determination in Ino's eyes, though. He knew that look, it was of wanting prove herself. Though she didn't last much longer in the match due to her limited arsenal, but she did put up a good fight. So in the end, Shikamaru lost, although barely, as Tamari too was exhausted due to using her wind attacks one after another. The arena being open-spaced, Shikamaru couldn't stall the fight to prepare some strategy, so he was forced to fight head-on. The lazy, never being the front-line fighter, still gave trouble to Temari by manipulating the shadows of the elevated platform, the proctor or whatever he could use for his advantage. Though Naruto was surprised that the Nara was actually, for once, taking something seriously, but at last, Temari was the winner. The next match was Tenten vs. Sakura vs. Kain. He had thought that Sakura would be immediately eliminated, but to his and almost everybody's immense shock who knew her, she was able to hold her own mainly by using genjutsus. Naruto had turned his head questionably towards Kakashi to find him smiling back at him. He immediately understood what was going on there. I still can't believe he was secretly training all three of us, he thought while chuckling to himself. His sensei had somewhat awkward methods of training, but he wasn't complaining after seeing the results. But due to her low chakra reserves, she was the first one to lose before it came down to just Kin and Tenten. Both of them being long-range fighters, the match dragged on, but Kin surprised Tenten by suddenly engaging her in taijutsu in a burst of speed, and ultimately the sound kunoichi came out as winner. Although Naruto wasn't surprised much, considering she was matching Sasuke toe-to-toe in their little fight in the rest room. Which brings us to the current situation and the last match, where the only contestants remaining were the Emo King and some other sound genin whose name Naruto didn't know. "Would Uchiha Sasuke and Tsuruga Masumi step down please?" said Hayate while coughing. Sasuke had a frown on his face, the fight of Naruto still replaying in his head before he jumped down, followed by Masumi. "Alright, now as you know the matches are supposed to contain 3 contestants and the current situation presents us only 2. So, is there anyone else willing to have another go? It may add up to your credit in the finals," said Hayate, still coughing while Sasuke's eyes widened before a smirk settled on his face. "You, fight me Dobi," he said, grabbing the opportunity while glaring at Naruto who merely raised his eyebrows. "No," said Naruto calmly while Sasuke clenched his fists. "What? Are you scared Dobi?" asked the Uchiha with a smirk, hoping to rile up his teammate while Naruto just replied him back calmly. "No, or did you forget how I kicked your in the forest?" Sasuke gritted his teeth while Kin and Ino snickered at the remark. "Fight me loser!" he yelled in frustration, his Sharingan activated while Naruto just shook his head. Meanwhile everyone was watching this scene going on with amusement and interest before a smirk settled on Sasuke's face. "I'd bet your parents were just like you, scared and weak nay," he said with a smirk while Naruto perked at the remark, his temper quickly rising to the surface, barely able to control his rage. "Uchiha," he growled while clenching his fists, which were white from the pressure while the Ice Queen seemed to emitting killer intent which our poor Uchiha wasn't able to detect. "And I bet you mother was a weak and probably died as a whore," he said, his smirk growing, the poor bastard unaware of the danger that was lurking below him. "Oh," thought Hiruzen, pitying the Uchiha. While he himself wanted to kick the genins for that comment, he knew Naruto would do a better job. The moment Sasuke had finished his sentence, the whole arena was overcome with a strong wave of killing intent, so strong that even Orochimaru was sweating. Apparently it seemed that the killer intent radar of our last Uchiha was off, as he couldn't feel anything while his smirk grew, but it faltered when Naruto just vanished from his sight. "Start the match Proctor," said Naruto as his voice changed to that of a demonic one while Sasuke turned his head to see Naruto, whose eyes were red Rinnegan deactivated, with slitted black pupil, his whisker marks more defined, his hair spikier than before, his fangs and nails elongated, which overall gave him a demonic appearance. Meanwhile Hayate gulped at the ridiculous amount of killing intent that Naruto was emitting, whereas poor Misugi was buckling on his knees, sweat pouring down his forehead as prayed to Kami to let him come out this alive. Start the match, Proctor, said Naruto as his voice changed to that of a demonic one while Sasuke turned his head to see Naruto, whose eyes were red Rinnegan deactivated, with slitted black pupil, his whisker marks more defined, his hair spikier than before, his fangs and nails elongated, which overall gave him a demonic appearance. Meanwhile, Hayate gulped at the ridiculous amount of killing intent that Naruto was emitting, whereas poor Misugi was buckling on his knees, sweat pouring down his forehead as he prayed to Kami to let him come out this alive. Kami, at least spare his Sharingan, thought an uncharacteristic Orochimaru, who had doubts if Sasuke's body would be usable enough for him after the match. Sasuke, how dare you call Kushina-sama that? Thought the furious copy ninja, angry at his student for unknowingly insulting such a legend, and someone he looked up to besides his sensei. Meanwhile, Sakura was also angry at Sasuke for his comment about Naruto's parents. She had come to admire and respect her blonde teammate, and didn't like someone insulting him. Even though it was Sasuke, she couldn't help but feel that slowly she was coming to dislike Sasuke. That bastard, son of a bye. No. Sorry Makoto-sama. That motherfuck. No. Again sorry Makoto-sama. That. Yeah. How dare he insult Kushina-ne like that? I'll make sure to have our dogs feast on him, thought Hana while gritting her teeth, barely restraining herself. She wanted nothing more than to rip the Uchiha to shreds right now and burn his remaining parts to ash in the hottest flames of hell. While the other Ice Queens could barely control their anger and killing intent, but a glare from Hiruzen kept them in place. However, they were helpful that the ridiculous amount of killing intent was not directed at them. But they were surprised that the Uchiha could even stand under such killing intent that Naruto was emanating. You should thank me, Sasuke-kun. It's because of Curse Seal that I triggered partially that you're able to withstand such killing intent, thought Orochimaru with a smirk, but now he was more interested in the Jinchuriki himself than the Uchiha. With the power of Rinnegan and the strongest Biju, he would be unbeatable. Meanwhile, May and their companions had deep frowns etched on their faces. That was a low blow indeed, but in the world of shinobi everything was fair. They were also surprised by the stupidity of the supposed last Uchiha, pulling a stunt like that after seeing what the blonde Jinchuriki was capable of was just suicidal. Even Sasuke was becoming nervous by seeing Naruto's demonic features, as were all the genins, who didn't have any idea what was going on. Control yourself, Naruto, you can't lose it here, thought Kakashi with a straight face, while inwardly he was worried for both of his students, worried for Sasuke that he may get killed and for Naruto that the council may take charges against his actions, and the fact that he was releasing Kyuubi's chakra here. On the other hand, Gaara was becoming excited at the feeling of bloodlust floating in the air, while he was feeling something he was not familiar with. But that was anger. He was confused, mainly towards the Uchiha for insulting Naruto's mother. Uzumaki's mother wants your blood, Uchiha, mine too, thought Gaara, in of those absurd psychotic moments of his. Kin was feeling angry and was emitting her own killing intent along with Ino and Temari, however that was being dwarfed by Naruto's right then. Ignoring his instincts who were telling him to hide in the Uchiha compound and never come out, he settled into his clan's taijutsu stance, an arrogant smirk etched on his face. While Naruto just stood there, his blood-red eyes glued on Sasuke whereas Tsuruga just raised his hand. Proctor, I forfeit, said the sound nin anxiously, wanting to stay away from the angry blonde, while Hayate just raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? He asked but only got a nod in return. All right, you can stand with the others now or leave the arena, he informed while Sasuke watched the leaving nin with satisfaction, the idiot thinking that it was because he didn't want to face an Uchiha. Smart move, thought Kurenai along with many others, referring to Masumi as she thought it was better to stay away from Naruto right now. Are you guys ready? Asked the sick proctor, while Sasuke just nodded, more confident in himself than ever because of the forfeit, whereas Naruto just stood there like a stone, like he was in a trance-like state and was only staring at Sasuke with barely restrained anger, never having said a word since he landed on the floor. Hajime! Yelled Hayate before jumping back from the two while the floor just cracked under the pressure of Naruto's feet, his demonic features more defined and an even higher killing intent washed upon the arena in waves. Attack me with all you got, Uchiha, I'll show the power you so desire, said Naruto in demonic tone, reverberating throughout the arena. Meanwhile Sasuke was becoming more nervous by the second, not sure what the hell was going on here. What is he? And what is that red chakra flowing through his coils with a small mixture of white? Thought the Uchiha, for the first time thinking reasonably since the beginning of second part of the Chunin exams. But he quickly composed himself, wanting to show the loser his place and that he's much stronger than these pathetic so-called genins. What? Why isn't he just clobbering the Uchiha brat? Thought Yugao and Mei, surprised that Naruto just didn't attack head front. Since he was in so much anger, they were expecting him to just pierce through the stuck-up brat. Your funeral, Dobi, said a smirking Sasuke before throwing several kunai and shuriken at Naruto, who just tilted his head while swatting the remaining weapons with a kunai, all the while keeping his bloody demonic gaze on the Uchiha, angering the rookie of the year even more. You think you're so tough, huh? Said Sasuke, angry that a low life such as this loser was showing him in front of almost every accomplished Chunin in the village and the cages, before he dashed towards Naruto at high genin speeds. Naruto would have yawned if he wasn't angry, seeing that the Uchiha was taking forever to reach him, especially when he had fought an opponent as fast as Lee, who was in the Celestial Gate mode. Upon reaching him, Sasuke threw combos of punches and kicks as fast and as hard as he could, but to no avail as Naruto seemed to just dodge these attacks with ease, all the while his eyes staring at the frustrated eyes of the Uchiha. He's toying with me, thought Sasuke, his frustration rising so much that his attacks began to become sloppy and unsynchronized. Stay still so I can beat you, he yelled as Naruto ducked under his kick. Naruto, seeing as how unpredictable he was, surprised everyone by complying to Sasuke's wish and didn't dodge the next punch aimed for his cheek. When his fist connected with his cheek, Naruto only took a step back from the blow while his face was facing in the opposite direction of Sasuke due to impact of the blow. Are you hurt, Dobi? Don't worry, I'll go easy on you from now on, said Sasuke with smirk. Oh, the limits of his foolishness. Much to the surprise of the genins, Naruto turned his head back before spitting the blood on the floor, apparently unharmed with only a small bruise on his cheek. His face emotionless, blue eyes which usually held mirth and mischievousness in them were now icy red. Is that all you've got, Uchiha? Asked Naruto, further angering Sasuke, who had just gotten out of his shock. That would have been a knockout punch for any other normal genin, thought Anko, inwardly grinning perversely at thought of Naruto's lean muscular frame. Oh, the possibilities. Shut up, loser. Sasuke went through a couple of familiar hand seals before releasing a larger fireball, pouring much more chakra in the jutsu than before. The larger than normal fireball approached Naruto at high speeds, but to the horror of everyone he just stood there. Naruto, move out, yelled Sakura. However, years of experience told Kakashi that the blonde enigma was going to pull something extraordinary down there. Meanwhile, Naruto just put his right palm towards the ghastly approaching fireball, his expression still as emotionless as before, with his eyes fixed, as if they were piercing through the fireball to gaze dangerously upon Sasuke. Shinra Tensei, he whispered quietly to himself, and to the much shock of everyone, the fireball disintegrated into small sparks of fire as if the arena was filled with fireflies. It was a beautiful sight to behold, and the others would have recognized it if not for their shock-induced states. Holy Mommy of Icha Taijutsu Lava, Byakugan Aao Senpai, Coolness, Lolly Chan Omoi Ponta, Sharingan, Torture, Genjutsu, Pups, Kenjutsu, Blood, Fate, Sasuke Kun, Barbecue, Smoky Chan, Flames of Youth, Sound, Snakes SSS. Thought Hiruzen, A, Mei, Ao, Chojiro, Samui, Nibi, Omoi, B, Sasuke and Kakashi, Anko, Kurenai, Hana, Yugao, Gaara, Neji, Sakura, Choji, Asuma, Guy, Kin and finally our lovely Orochimaru simultaneously, all of their jaws on the ground. Suddenly the gravity seemed to increase too much to pick their jaws. I've never, ever seen someone do this to a ninjutsu in my entire sea career, thought a shaken Hayate. My turn, Tem, said Naruto before his traces vanished from the reaches of the almighty Sharingan, while Sasuke looked furiously around himself for any sign of his rival, or enemy. Naruto appeared in front of Sasuke to deliver a hardcore punch to his stomach, the Uchiha spitting some blood while Naruto twisted his fist at the point of impact. How does it feel, Uchiha? Said Naruto before again blurring out of Sasuke's vision, delivering a spinning kick after appearing behind him, sending the rookie flying towards the wall like a comet Husace on fire. Just as Sasuke was about to crash, Naruto appeared near the wall before delivery a handstand uppercut kick on his jaw leading to the Uchiha getting airborne. Sasuke was in a whole world pain right now. His right eye was swollen black which was closed, blood seeping from his mouth while his left cheek was swollen too along with multiple bruises on his face. All in all his fangirls would have puked if they would have seen him in this condition. His stomach was still hurting from that monstrous punch, leading to him having fits of cough. The world around him spinning while his brain couldn't register anything. Small chirping imaginary birds were flowing around his head while his thoughts were along the line. He, Itachi-chan is such a good brother, I love him. Happy birthday. Thought the pretty up Uchiha, his brain not on the right track before he was sent flying towards the hard concrete floor, courtesy of an angry Naruto's leg drop. Sasuke crashed violently on the ground before Naruto landed near him. Grabbing his ankle, he hurled the Uchiha like he was an empty ramen bowl towards the only craterless wall. Sasuke was sent spiraling towards the wall like a shuriken before he got stuck in the crater because of his collision, debris and chunks of cemented wall flying in all directions. Kami, how can he possess so much strength? Thought a stupefied Kin, but on the other hand was satisfied by the answer the Uchiha got because of the insult. Naruto was in front of an unconscious Sasuke in a flash, his eyes glowing red as pushed Sasuke further into the wall by grabbing his neck. Never, paused Naruto before punching him in the stomach. Ever, punch, insult, punch, my, punch, Ka-san, got that TME, punch. Each time Sasuke being embedded further into the wall while blood soaked out of mouth like a blood canal, all the genins wincing at the brutality of the attacks. But Naruto wasn't finished as he reared his fist, now crackling with electricity. Stop it. The match is over, Naruto-san, he's already unconscious, you won now, said a coughing Hayate, but it fell on deaf ears. Naruto, stop it. That's enough, yelled Sakura while the others too thought that there was no need to further injure the already unconscious Uchiha, he was taking it too far. But the blonde Jinchuriki couldn't hear anyone's shouts, too flooded with anger to see the pitiful condition of Sasuke. RRRAAAAHHHHHH, gave Naruto a battle cry as his lightning-charged fist approached Sasuke's face. Behind him you could see Hayate and the other Junins dashing towards now seemingly out of control Naruto, but they knew that they wouldn't be able to reach him in time. Oh, and if possible take care of Sasuke, Naruto-kun, remembered Naruto, the words of Itachi as he visioned the pleading look in his eyes, the eyes of a big brother. To everyone's surprise, his deathly fist just stopped inches away from Sasuke's face, which was difficult to recognize now. The Junins and Hayate too stopped. His fists trembling, barely resisting the urge to just wipe the nuisance called Uchiha Sasuke from the face of the planet, while he was panting heavily. The lightning covering his fist slowly disintegrated. His eyes turned to blue before he grabbed Sasuke by his collar before roughly throwing him behind him, not turning his head. Hayate catched the Uchiha before quickly calling for medics, looking at the wounded Sasuke with disgust in his eyes. To be honest, the coughing proctor was somewhat himself pleased with the beating the Uchiha got. Nobody was worried for Sasuke except maybe Sakura and Kakashi, but they were mainly concerned for the blonde. Seeing him lose control like that made them somewhat worry. "Kuso!" yelled Naruto in frustration as he punched a hole in the wall, bangs covering his eyes while he gritted his teeth. "Oi Gaki, are you alright?" asked Anko, expressing her concern under a mask of indifference while Naruto didn't respond. Tears slowly streamed down his face, his bangs still covering his eyes. Now the anger was gone, he was emotionally feeling frustrated. That insult, a painful reminder of that he would never see his parents, or he wondered if he would even know his father's name or hear about them. "She's never coming back. Ka-san, I just want to see you once. Please, please, please. Is it too much to ask?" He screamed in his head as more tears seemed to leak out, but he quickly wiped them with his hands when he felt someone approaching, not wanting to be seen as weak in front of everyone. He turned his head to see the proctor for the second exams walking towards him slowly, expecting to see a face of indifference or pity. He was shocked to see deep concern and worry for him in her eyes, even though her face was that of indifference. Meanwhile, other Junins were busy in carefully lifting the Uchiha, seeing as they wanted to be seen as good in front of the council and the villagers for caring for the last Uchiha. "Are you alright, Naru-kun?" she asked in a much lower tone than before, so that no one could hear her besides Naruto, while Naruto himself was panting a bit due to exhaustion because of his fight with Lee and now his damn so-called teammate. Again, "She's calling me Naru-kun," he thought with a surprised face, but quickly composed himself. If she cared for him and didn't hate him for Ayumi, then he wasn't going to let go of any opportunity for making new friends. "I'm alright, Anko-san. You don't need to worry for me," he said while panting, giving her a small weak smile. Anko's heart clenched at seeing someone she loved so much in so much pain, while the Kurenai, Hana and Yugao were with other Junins pretending that they cared for Uchiha, although their eyes had never left Naruto as they were worried sick for him. Just as Anko was going to approach him to give him a hand as he seemed to be tired as well as emotionally drained, her eyes widened when she saw something or someone behind Naruto coming out of the wall, that haunted her in her worst nightmares even now. "Naruto, look out!" she screamed, startling everyone in the arena while Naruto just looked at her in confusion. "What d?" He paused when he felt pain on his side neck, his eyes widened in surprise before he started screaming in pain, further startling everyone. Behind Naruto, you could see Orochimaru's neck protruding out of the wall while his sharp fangs came out of the Naruto's skin on the side neck. "You bastard!" screamed Anko as she dashed full speed towards the Snake Sannin. Behind her you could see Hiruzen ready in battle gear already dashing towards the wall with A and Mei. Naruto continued to scream while he clutched his neck in pain, whereas Orochimaru started to withdraw back into the wall like the snake he was. "It was good to see you, Anko-chan," said a chuckling Orochimaru, his voice becoming distant just as Anko reached the wall and punched it as hard as she could, creating a large crater but no sign of the Snake Sannin. Even though A's speed was said to be on par with the Yondaime Hokage, he was still too far to reach there in time to catch the Sannin. "Shit. All of you except the Junin sensei, spread out and search for Orochimaru," Inform all stations to start searching for him. Close all the exits and make sure no one gets out of the village until the search is finished. Move out, he said while all the Junins chorused a hi before disappearing in blurs. Even though Hana and Yugao didn't want to leave Naruto, they had to follow the Hokage's orders. Curse you, Orochimaru. What are you planning now? First the Uchiha and now Naruto-kun, thought Hiruzen angry at himself that Orochimaru was able to sneak among so many Junins and cages and pull this stunt. Please be okay, Naruto-kun, you can't die on us. I haven't even told you who I am, thought Hana and Yugao simultaneously, glancing at his screaming form worriedly before shining out of the arena. Meanwhile, Anko hurriedly moved to give a clean chop to Naruto's back neck, rendering him unconscious, putting stop to his screams and caught him in her arms. Anko, why did you do that? Asked Kurenai while Anko replied without looking at her, gazing at Naruto's neck on which a black curse just like Sasuke's was forming slowly. If he stays unconscious and moves, the curse mark will spread faster. Hokage-sama, we have to hurry to the hospital, said Anko while gritting her teeth. That bastard used his damn camouflage to sneak among us and used the opportunity like the snake he is. Orochimaru, first you destroy my life and now you're planning to do this to Naru-kun, aren't you? As long as I'm breathing, you wouldn't be able to touch even a speck of his blonde hair. God damn it, she thought before slamming her fist on the side wall, creating a small crater while a sweating Naruto, his body cold, was still in her arms. Hurry up and go, Anko, his skin is becoming pale, ordered Hiruzen while Anko immediately shunshined out of the arena. I hope he is alright, thought Yugito, worried about the blonde Jinchuriki. Of course he would be alright, kitten, but first we have to find that snake bastard for doing that to our mate, said Nibby inside Yugito while she nodded. Wait. What do you mean? Our mate? I don't even know him. Then get to know him, kitten, and do it fast. 'Cause I can't wait to feel the immense pleasure that I know he will provide us, growled Nibby with lust while Yugito's blush deepened to that of Hinata's shade. Be safe, cool guy, thought our typical Samui, angry at the Sannin. She didn't knew the blonde Jinchuriki that much, but as far as she'd seen him, he was definitely in her cool things list and she wanted to know him better. Even though he was a Jinchuriki, and the way he was treated, he still remained upbeat, was compassionate to his friends and his goals, gave it his all, had a cheery personality but could become dead serious in a second if the situation called for it. All in all, he was the first guy in which she was even remotely interested. He had something which other males didn't have. These were the same things that urged May, almost subconsciously, to get to know him better. She didn't know why, but felt strangely worried along with a pang in her chest when she heard his painful cries. Almost all her life, she didn't had time to pursue any romantic relationship. First she was busy in her training and mastering her bloodline, then the unstable state of bloodline wars in Kiri where she was the leader of the rebellion group gave her no time for these things. But he was the first to catch her interest. True, she flirted with almost anyone, though not with perverts, but that was mainly because she enjoyed embarrassing others. But he was different, that charming smile of his, oh God, it made something flutter in her body. She didn't know what it was, but was eager to find out. Hokage Dono, we would also like to aid your shinobi in finding that bastard. He's an international wanted criminal after all, said A, barely containing his anger while May nodded with him. He had come to like the Gaki's attitude and the way he handled things, but to attack from behind, when someone was at its weakest, he truly was a wretched snake. As you wish, Raikage Dono, Mizukage Dono, said Hiruzen while A and May ordered their respective groups to aid the other shinobi in their search, before they all shunshined out of the arena. Kukuku, I'm sure you'll like my parting gift, Naruto-kun. But for now, both of you are enough. I'll think about the Hyuga heiress later on, thought Orochimaru while he blurred past an unknown location. Meanwhile, all the remaining genins were awestruck at the events that took place here. Although some of them had lost their respective matches, but with first aid their physical condition was stable, so they had opted to remain and watch the matches, to analyze their possible opponents' techniques and fighting styles. Naruto, thought Sakura as moisture gathered in her eyes. Now both of her teammates had that curse mark. That, I'll never forgive you, Orochi-tem. Naruto-kun, please be alright, Kin thought, while Temari's and Ino's thoughts were along the same line as they prayed for Naruto's safety. Hokage-sama, may I go to the hospital to check up on Naruto's condition? Hinata needs treatment too. Hiruzen turned around to find Kurenai bowing in front of him on one knee, her head down while curly locks of black hair shadowed her face. Though her voice was as cold as usual, he knew she was worried sick for Naruto and was barely restraining herself from just following Anko right then. Hi, you can. The moment he had said, hi, Kurenai was out of the arena with Hinata, not allowing him to complete the sentence. Alright, listen everybody, for now all of you can leave except your sensei and rest. You will be called after 2 days for the results of the preliminaries, but know this, that the third stage of the exams will occur after a month from now, so you can start your training immediately while your opponents will probably be announced in 2 days, he said while everyone, who were shaken by the current events going on, nodded without hesitation and left the arena. Meanwhile, Kin, Temari, Ino and Sakura couldn't help but think how the blonde who had impacted their lives to the deepest levels was faring right then. Hokage-sama, can I? Started Kakashi, only to be interrupted by Hiruzen. No, Kakashi. You can't check up on Naruto-kun right now. Remember that Sasuke has the curse seal too, so we need you to guard him, and when he wakes up, you will have to seal that mark. But in case of Naruto, 2 seals on his body can give rise of complications. Jiraiya will arrive here in a day or two, so I'll have him look into this matter. So right now, you have to guard Sasuke's room and report any abnormalities you may find. Is that understood? Asked Hiruzen in his authoritative tone while Kakashi offered a quiet, hi, before shining out of the area. Konoha's General Hospital. The receptionist was quietly working herself to the ground. The reason? These damn punky weak genins just kept getting injured or dying in the Chunin exams, and although that was not a healthy spirit she had, but she was tired of this paperwork. However, she was startled by a sudden poof of smoke, almost making her fall backwards with her chair. Orders of Hokage-sama. We need to treat him, now, came a frantic voice when the receptionist saw just who was talking to her, or just who needed treatment. She would have sneered at them if not for the murderous glare and a heavy killing intent that was emitting out of the torture specialist Chunin. Those eyes clearly said, one wrong move, and you'll spend the rest of your days as my play toy in the torture and interrogation cell. By now, all the nearby doctors, patients, the receptionist and the nurses were having trouble breathing or even standing for that matter. Alright, hey you, get your over here, she called frantically, wanting to get them going as fast as possible. The doctor she had called looked towards her in shock. She had never spoken like that to him and had always respected him. But he quickly ignored that, seeing that Ibiki's apprentice was standing there, glaring at you would make any normal civilian soil themselves or change their personalities quickly. And forget the stretcher. I don't trust any one of you. Just tell me the room. And hurry the up, you pansies, yelled Anko, her frustration reaching to her as she felt Naruto convulsing restlessly in pain, his eyes shut painfully, his skin now more pale than before, while the said doctor cowered under her intense gaze before he quickly led her to a vacant room and in the process called several doctors with him for the treatment, who were inwardly cursing him for dragging them into this. The doctor knew that he had never ran so fast in his life, and he never thought he would have to do that for the demon boy, or the snake whore, for that. While the doctors began their checkup on the blonde Jinchuriki, one of them came and asked Anko to wait outside the room, but she knew about their shallow tricks. All the years of watching over Naruto, she, Yugao, Hana and Kurenai knew almost all of their bloody methods of torturing Naruto. I'm taking none of that shit. What? You expect me to just puke like a shallow civilian while you do your work? I've seen and done worse than what you do during operations, so I'm gonna stay here. Do you have a problem, you geezer? She said in a threatening tone, leading to the doctor sweating bullets, as that was just the thing they were planning to do. When the demon brat was at its weakest, they could just kill him, but now, with her watching their every move, who knew about every part of human anatomy as she was the chief head of the interrogation and torture department, they had to treat this demon incarnation properly. So begrudgingly, they began their work, some of them being medic nins under the watchful eye of Anko. Meanwhile, Kurenai had just reached the hospital with Hinata in her arms. Seeing that she was a prodigy Chunin along with the Hyuga heiress, they were immediately shown the room with a red carpet. After seeing that Hinata was apparently alright, she immediately asked for Naruto's room, which she had to do with a bit of threatening related to horrible genjutsus and all. Upon reaching the room, she saw Anko standing in the room with her arms across her chest while the medics were treating Naruto as fast as they could. Although her face seemed to be calm on the outside, Kurenai knew there was a raging whirlwind inside, ready to explode at the first signs of Orochimaru. Quietly walking up to her, she put her hand on her shoulder. Anko, she trailed while Anko immediately jerked her hand off, startling the genjutsu mistress before turning around. What do yo? She trailed when she realized that it was Kurenai. Oh, Kurenai-chan. I'm sorry, she said, bowing her head a little while offering her longtime friend a weak smile, making Kurenai more worried. 1. Because Anko never uses her full name, and 2. She never shows her true self in public places such as this. Anko, don't worry, he'll pull out of this. You know he's had worse than this. But, how is he doing now? She asked while putting a caring hand on Anko's shoulder. His condition has stabilized a bit, she said while closing her eyes. That bastard. She spat while clenching her fists by her side so hard that they were white from the pressure and were trembling with rage. First he destroys my life, and now. She breathed calmly to stop the quivering in her voice while clenching her eyes tightly. He does this to Naruto-kun, she said with a quivering voice, unable to stop the tremor in her usually loud and confident tone while lowering her head, her fists tightly clenched by her side. Applying a weak genjutsu over them so that it looked like they were just standing next to each other to the passerbys as well as the medics, she quickly hugged one of her best friends. Shoo! Don't worry, Anko-chan, his time will come too, let it all out, said Kurenai as she rubbed Anko's back soothingly while the snake mistress's head was buried in Kurenai's shoulder, before she started sobbing quietly. Her sobs muffled as she buried her head on her friend's shoulders while Kurenai rubbed her back soothingly. Kurenai turned her head to see a now stabilized Naruto, although his skin was still a pale shade. We have done all that we could. He is somewhat stable than before, but we don't know when he would wake up, said one of the medics as he bowed to the seemingly standing Kurenai, glaring at Anko before walking out with the rest of the medics. Naruto's mindscape. That bastard. Shit. He used that moment to his advantage and put that freaking curse mark on me too. I knew there was a gay, thought Naruto in anger with a hint of bitterness, wanting to puke at the thought of the gay Sannin. As his anger and frustration subsided, he finally took a look around him, seeing the same lush trees, waterfalls and some nature thingies which he had visited so many times in the past few days. Ah, thank Kami. Maybe Ayumi-chan will know what to do. But his thoughts were interrupted when a huge wave of red chakra washed over the forest, effectively making him fly back. Ah, what the hell was that? He exclaimed while holding his head. It was like a sudden sparking pain had engulfed his head. Immediately standing up, he began walking down the familiar path. Upon reaching the center of the forest, he saw a glowing red figure of Ayumi sitting there cross-legged in a meditative stance, her eyes closed, scrunched up in concentration while tendrils of red chakra were flowing around her, her furry 9 tails flowing behind her animatedly. Her loose kimono, which she had demanded after a while, stating that the Chunin gear was uncomfortable for her, was loosely hugging her body because of the wind created by her yuki, showing off a bit of her cleavage, making Naruto blush furiously. He almost drooled at the sight before shaking his head furiously while slapping his cheeks with both hands simultaneously. I'm not a pervert, but still, they look so, even thinking about made his nose bleed a bit. Remembering his condition, he slowly wiped the blood before slowly approaching her. Ayumi-chan, he said with uncertainty in his voice, not sure if he should disturb her of whatever she was doing, but he had to know, this was his body and mindscape after all. Hearing him, her ears perked up cutely. That curse mark, its chakra is trying to take over your body, she said as beads of sweat rolled down her forehead while Naruto nodded with her grimly. Hi, I figured that would happen. That snake bastard chose the best moment he could have gotten to give you the curse mark. Because you were at your weakest and were low on chakra, which I might add is very special and could have easily destroyed this curse seal. That's why I have to do the work, which I might again add that is not easy for me, she said, still not opening her eyes while Naruto's sweat dropped. Yeah, you keep on adding while the snaky's chakra is ing up with my body, he thought sarcastically before asking her. What do you mean it's difficult for you? You're the queen of all bijus, right? He said while a slight smirk of pride settled on Ayumi's face. Of course I am, but since the seal is still strong, I cannot leak much of my yuki to override the mechanisms of the curse seal. But I have to say that this curse seal did one thing good for us, she said while the red tendrils around her started to get violent. Although her eyes were closed, she could still feel the confusion on Naruto's face. What I mean to say is that the curse mark is slowly eating away at the seal, and although it isn't powerful enough to be able to break the seal, but still it can damage at least 1/4 of it, which, well, you know it, she said with a bit excitement in her voice at the last part while Naruto's eyes widened. Wow, that's amazing, Ayumi-chan. Then we would be able to contact each other telepathically, and you would be able to see and hear through me, he said before jumping at her and hugged her tightly. Ayumi would have blushed furiously if not for the situation, but at least she could still afford a bit of pink on her cheeks, couldn't she? She would have fallen back if not for her 9 tails to support her as well as Naruto's wheat. Nah, Naruto-kun. This is not the time, I'm still fighting the curse mark to prevent it from spreading here, remember, she said, trying to look angry but couldn't help but enjoy the physical contact with her favorite blonde. His warm breath tickled her neck, sending shivers down her spine, making her remember the heated kiss they shared, darkening the shade of red on her cheeks. Ah, Gomen Ayumi-chan. He jerked himself back, bowing his head to hide the blush that was lingering on his cheeks. Her curvy and plumpets felt so good. It's nothing. But know that it'll take some time for the seal to corrode effectively where I can force enough of my yuki and destroy that purple chakra as well as the curse mark. So, it might take a day or two on the outside, which means it'll take more time in your mindscape due to time displacement, she said, a light blush still on her cheeks before concentrating on the task at hand. Alright. Then, I guess I'll use the time to train then Dadbao, he said, the usual glimmer in his oceanic blue eyes when it comes to training. A tick mark grew on Ayumi's forehead, while Naruto, being the oblivious self, began to walk away for training when suddenly one of the Ayumi's tails grabbed his ankle before dragging him back to her. "Ah, what are you doing, Ayumi-chan?" he said quite so innocently while her eyebrows twitched in irritation and annoyance before she yanked him by his high collar of his trenchcoat. "How dare you think about training when I'm busting my here to save you," she said with a murderous glare which truly justified her status of the strongest Biju, leading to Naruto cowering like a genin in the hordes of cages. But," he stuttered while her expression softened before she pouted with a teary expression, "you don't care about me, do you?" she said so innocently that Naruto had to restrain himself to just kiss the daylights out of her. "Ah, no, of course not, Ayumi-chan. I do care about you," he said frantically while Ayumi smirked inwardly. Hee, always works, before her expression suddenly changed back to an extremely happy vixen. "Good. Then sit with me while I kick that curse seals," she said while pumping her fists before pulling Naruto with her in the warm embrace of her 9 tails. Not one to give up on training, Naruto sneakily created a shadow clone, and mentally commanding him to create several other clones and start training far off from the center of the forest. The clone nodded before sneakily taking off to the other part of the forest. He, gotta love the cage bunshin training, he thought while inwardly snickering to himself. Meanwhile, Ayumi sighed inwardly, he's just like you, Kushina-chan, not one to ever give up on training. Immediately feeling quite comfortable in her warm furry embrace, Naruto began to fall asleep while Kyuubi continued to concentrate, which was supposed to be a somewhat long and a tiring process. Slowly coming to consciousness, Naruto tried to open his eyes, but the immediate exposure to light made him close his eyes shut. He could feel someone besides him, but the light sounds of snoring told him that she was asleep. Giving a grunt, he opened his eyes slowly while he could feel the one beside him also stir before a loud feminine shout of excitement came from her. "Naruto-kun." Immediately he felt his face in something soft, and the scent was heavenly too with a mix of sweat. Seems his senses were all right. Upon his natural instinct, he grabbed whatever his face buried in, taking a feel of it before he heard a soft moan. Freezing on the spot, his mind went haywire with the possibilities. Wait, this, round, curvy, extremely soft and spongy, this scent. Oh shit. His face paled when he recognized what he was squeezing and of whom he was squeezing. Opening his eyes in slight horror and anticipation, he saw the flushed face of the one and only Anko Mitarashi, her eyes closed in pleasure or irritation, her face red indicating a blush or anger, he didn't know. But knew one thing, he had to apologize or he could kiss his manhood goodbye, not that he could do that literally. Go Gomen a Anko-san. I'm extremely sorry, he apologized, his voice stuttering like that of Orochimaru caught experimenting by his mommy while his hand still hadn't left her left plump. What more was that during the night to get comfortable, Anko had taken off her trenchcoat leaving her in a very revealing fishnet, almost making Naruto feel her skin. On the other hand, a teasing grin took birth on Anko's flushed face. Hee, I see you're still enjoying yourself despite the apology, Naru-kun. She reached down to whisper in his ears, if you want me, you could have just said so, Naruto-kun, she whispered huskily, her hot breath tingling his neck, making his senses go haywire. He started sputtering while his blush darkened to that Hinata's shade before Anko started laughing hysterically. After some moments of her laughing at his expense, she calmed down, although she was still lightly snickering to herself. Oh that was great. I can't believe that I just pranked the greatest prankmaster of Konoha of all times, she said while wiping the tears from so much laughing before wearing her trench coat, while Naruto couldn't help but feel proud of that compliment. It was like pranking flowed in his blood, and although his DNA had changed, he felt as though he was honoring his mother with his status as a prankmaster. Pretty weird, huh? Shaking himself from these useless thoughts, he remembered the events that took place 2 days before. I presume Orochimaru fled, he said out of nowhere while Anko flinched ever so slightly before nodding sadly at him. Good, I'll catch that bastard myself, he said off-handed with determination shining in his eyes while Anko looked at him surprised, but that wouldn't be the first time he had done that. Hee. No matter how much I try to know you, you always manage to surprise me, Naru-kun, she said with a surprisingly much lower tone than she usually uses, a small smile of adoration present on her face making Naruto feel all warm inside before he decided to ask what was on his mind since the start of the second exams. Okay, I'm kinda confused here. Why do you keep calling me Naru-kun? You act as if you have known me my whole life even though I've never met you, he said in confusion with a hint of irritation in his voice. Oh, you've never met me, huh? Seems I need to freshen up your memory, she said with a wink before transforming herself into a girl who looked to be in her teens, her purple hair falling to the mid of her back wearing civilian clothes. There was a cute expression on her face, a dango stick in her soft hands which she seemed to be offering to Naruto. Do you want dango, Whisker-chan? She asked with an extreme cute face, her eyes shining as if her whole world depended on Naruto's answer. Immediately, Naruto's jaw dropped on the hospital bed, his eyes wide while he pointed a shaky finger at her. You are, he stuttered while the girl smiled in anticipation. Flashback 5 years ago, several months after the disappearance of his friends Kurenai, Yugao and Hana. Little 8-year-old Naruto was currently going through a trash can in a dark alley to find something to eat. It was night time, so under the street lights he was hoping to find something edible as he hadn't eaten anything for 2 days. All the other food shops refused to give him anything. He hadn't got any money for Ichiraku ramen and didn't like to put burden on the old man there. It was still some days before he would get his weekly allowance from his Gigi, so he had to resort to trashcan food to at least keep him alive. Not finding anything, he kicked the can in frustration. Ah, damn it. Isn't there anything here that I can eat? He said while grabbing his dirty blonde hair in frustration before he heard the soft sounds of footsteps of someone approaching the alley with his enhanced senses. Immediately hiding in a dark corner behind the other cans, he looked sneakily to see a girl of his age coming to exactly where he was hiding. His eyes widened his horror before he heard a soft and a caring voice. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, I'm not here to hurt you. You're hungry, right? As if answering her question, he stood up shakily. He had nothing to lose after all. He knew this could be one of the many methods of the villagers to kill him with poisoned food, but he didn't care. Either his stomach was getting full or he was just gonna die. He was tired of it. He wouldn't be able to live by the end of the week anyway. But he was surprised to see a very beautiful girl, taller than him by a few inches with a cheerful expression on her face carrying 2 stuffed bags. His mouth watered at the delicious aroma of the hot food coming from those paper bags, while he just nodded, his eyes transfixed on the stuff she was carrying like he had found the working scrolls to Harem. He was brought out of his mouth-watering trance when he heard her giggling. Her voice sounded like an angel leading to a small blush on his whiskered face. Ah, is Whisker-chan blushing? How cute! She exclaimed before taking him into a sudden tight hug, making Naruto's face flush an extreme shade of red as his face was pushed into her impressive bust, for her age at least. He was a bit uncomfortable with the sudden physical contact as he wasn't used to it after all. But somehow he was a bit disappointed when she released him, but that bright cheery smile of hers more than made up for it, lighting a small smile on his face. Anyo, who are you? He asked while tilting his head in confusion whereas the girl just blinked at him. Oh, do you remember who puts those packs of dango on your door at mornings and nights? She said with her shining eyes which radiated happiness. He wished his eyes were like her too. Realizing her question, his eyes widened in surprise. Why you were? He trailed off while she nodded furiously with a large grin. Yep, it was me. Sorry that I couldn't meet you in person before, but I was always in a hurry for my training with my awesome sensei, she said with so much happiness that it looked like nothing could make her sad. So, he again trailed when his stomach growled loudly while he blushed in embarrassment. The girl leaned down and kissed him on the cheek. You're so cute, Whisker-chan, she said with her shining brown eyes, a loving smile on her face while Naruto sputtered incoherent words. He didn't know how to deal with compliments, rarely did he face such feat after all. Yosh, let's go to your apartment. We need to fill your tummy up, she said while taking Naruto's hand in her exuberance illuminating the night before they vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto's apartment. Appearing in the small dark apartment, Naruto could feel his head spinning because of the teleportation as he wasn't used to it when he felt a soft but firm hand on his small shoulder. Are you alright, Whisker-chan? She said with concern while Naruto could feel his eyes twitching at the nickname. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, so stop calling me Whisker-chan Dadbao, he said with a frown as he pointed his thumb at his chest proudly while she cooed. Ooh, does Whisker-chan not like his name? She said in a teasing tone while Naruto's irritation grew. He was about to retort before she beat him to it. You can also call me by any nickname if you want, nay, she offered with a smile while he went into thinking pose. After some moments of not saying anything, oh come on, it shouldn't take that long to come up with a name for me. It could be, Super Angel, or like, Pretty Awesome Princesses, nay, she offered with a grin before Naruto suddenly said. Oh I know, Dango-chan, he exclaimed while she face vaulted. She got up, her eyes twitching while a vein popped on her forehead before she grabbed him by his collar. What kind of idiotic name is that? She yelled, shaking him furiously before Naruto retorted back. Then what kind of a stupid name is Whisker-chan? He said as both, HMPH'd, in irritation, looking in opposite directions, arms crossed in front of their chests. I wouldn't talk to you, you're mean, she said in a childish-like voice while Naruto winced ever so slightly. Neither would I. You were the one who started this, he puffed his cheeks to show his irritation, both of them stubborn before another growl from Naruto's stomach broke them out of their stupor before the girl sighed. Alright, let's eat now, you haven't eaten for a while now, she said before putting the freshly baked dango on some plates which she had brought from the kitchen on the small dinner table of Naruto's apartment. Hey, how do you know which things are kept where in my house? He said while the girl grinned sheepishly. Oh, I kept coming here during nights to check up on you or your apartment after my training, but I always found you asleep, she said, a hint of fear in her usually bright eyes for how he would take this. Meanwhile, Naruto didn't say anything but just went up to her before hugging her tightly, his small hands locking around her curvy lower back while he rested his head on her stomach. Thank you for everything Dango-chan, he said with his quivering voice while she just blinked in surprise before hugging him back. Oh hee, it's nothing Whisker-chan, really, she said with a small blush adorning her cheeks under the moonlight, almost giving her form an angelic glow. However, her clothes were tattered a bit as she had come after her training as usual. No, it means everything, to me, he said while furiously shaking his head as his grip tightened. She lovingly stroked his blonde hair she was so mesmerized with while he sobbed a bit. After a few moments of just staying in this position he calmed down a bit. Come on now, my dango is getting cold, she said jokingly while Naruto too nodded, his eyes still wet before he wiped them with his petite hands. She sat on one of the two chairs while Naruto took the other one before they both started eating. Both of them ate like they hadn't eaten for days, while that was true in case of Naruto, but because of the training that her sensei put her through, she was hungry as hell. While Naruto hadn't eaten dango before, he was slowly coming to like it, but the taste didn't matter to him as long as his stomach was full right now. She and Naruto both sighed in contentment as they patted their buffy stomach. That was awesome, he said with a dreamy look on his face. It felt amazing for his stomach to be full after 2 days while the girl nodded with him in satisfaction. Hey, Dango-chan, he said with a faraway look from his face while she, hummed, to indicate that she was listening, her eyes still closed as she enjoyed the comfortable silence between them. Do you know, Bahihime-chan, Yugi-chan or Sum-chan? He said with a hopeful look in his eyes while she flinched lightly at the question which went unnoticed by Naruto, as he was too engrossed in the memory of his friends whom he had been searching for months now. Sorry Whisker-chan, but I don't know about them, she said while her eyes were still closed, trying to avoid seeing the sad expression on his face. Gomen Naru-kun, but I promised Ker-chan, Yugao-chan and Hana-chan not to tell about them to you, she thought before remembering the main reason she had met him tonight. Nay Whisker-chan, I'm going with my sensei to a training trip outside the village, she said after opening her eyes while Naruto's eyes widened. Why you too, but when will you be back? He said, a sad look on his face at having to say goodbye to yet another of his rare friends. Ah, don't worry, I'll be back soon. I have to train to get stronger, she said with a smile before a look of confusion crossed Naruto's face. But why do you want to become strong? He said with a cute expression making her blush a bit. So I can protect my precious people, she said with conviction as determination shined in her brown eyes while Naruto's eyes widened. It was this line that had changed his whole perspective on the world of shinobi. It was this one simple statement that had urged and helped him to face more difficult times he would come across in the next 5 years. It was this declaration that had made the blueprints for his nindo, his shinobi's way, his way of the ninja, and most importantly, his reason for becoming strong and his dream of becoming Hokage. And especially you, Whisker-chan, she said in a barely audible whisper which any normal person wouldn't have been able to hear. His pupil in his wide eyes zoomed out to that of a small circle when he heard her whisper. Really? But why would you do that? He asked with a lump in his throat while she smiled serenely at him. Of course I would. As to why, nope, not telling you, she replied before sticking her tongue out at him while Naruto couldn't help but smile at her. It was probably one of his rare happy days in a year. Seeing her face in her happy expression, an unfamiliar warmth spread throughout his body like a wildfire. Then I too would become strong, and will protect you along with other people who are precious to me, Dadbao, he said with his 1,000-watt smile making her blush yet again, before she replied, I'll look forward to it Whisker-chan, before motioning him to come closer to her. Naruto got out of his chair before moving to the other side of the table in front of her sitting form. It's late now Whisker-chan, you should sleep now. I too have to rest as I'll leave the village early tomorrow, she said with a small smile while he lowered his head. Come on, don't be gloomy. I'll be back strong and will protect you from all those idiot villagers. Meanwhile, Hokage-sama should be able to keep a leash on them somewhat. But, she bit her lip while withdrawing her gaze from his oceanic blue eyes in which she could just lose herself. You'll remember me, wouldn't you? She said with a worried face while he nodded furiously. Of course, you're now one of the few who I treasure and would gladly give up my life for, he said with a smile while she moisture gathered in her eyes before she crushed him into a tight hug. I'll miss you so much Whisker-chan, she whispered with a sniff, while Naruto patted her back with his small hands. I'll miss you too, he whispered before she released him slowly while rubbing her eyes. Slowly leaning down, she placed a tender kiss on his cheeks while he blushed furiously. Nobody had ever kissed him, even on the cheek, so it felt kinda weird, but he wasn't the one to complain. Yane Whisker-chan, and maybe when I return, I'll tell you my name, she said while grinning before vanishing in a shunshin. Hey wait! He shouted, but she was already gone. Damn. I really forgot to ask her name. Ah, I'm such an idiot, he exclaimed while smacking his forehead. But, I'll always remember you and wait for you, he, Dango-chan, he spoke to himself while laughing at the stupid nickname he had come up with. Flashback end. Dango-chan, he exclaimed as he got out of his white sheets before hugging her tightly. Anko blushed furiously while her eyes twitched in irritation at the silly name he hadn't seemed to forgot. Will you stop using that ridiculous name? I now call you Naru-kun, don't I? She said, trying to feign irritation but couldn't help but smile while Naruto released her before rubbing the back of his head, smiling sheepishly. Sorry. So, his eyes widened when he realized that the famous torture specialist of Konoha was that same bubbly, always smiling and impulsive girl that he had met about 5 years ago. He now started understanding everything, why she didn't came to greet him after her training. He was sad at the time that she could have just abandoned him like his other previous 3 friends, or worse, maybe she had died out there during her training. He now understood everything. She was Anko Mitarashi, prodigy student of the Snake Sannin and traitor Orochimaru. That bastard had fooled her innocent mind at that time. He had given her curse mark during their training trip before she was found on the shores of the Demon Island. He didn't even want to imagine what that may have put her through or what disgusting things she may have seen with him to change her personality so much. So, you were Anko all along. Why you were the one to help me. That's why you didn't came to meet me after you were found in a partial amnesia state. Had such a bright personality before. That bastard, he growled while Anko just smiled sadly before nodding at him. I'm sorry that I couldn't meet you after that. When I returned, there was already the burden of curse mark on me along with amnesia. My mind was on the brink of going insane with the things that I saw with him and the constant pain that this curse seal provides me with, but Hokage-sama along with my friends saved me. By the time I was stable enough, Hokage-sama had already told me not to approach you just like Kurenai, Yugao and Hana. She was interrupted by Naruto. What do you mean Hana and Yugao too? He said in confusion while she just smiled in anticipation waiting for him to sort things out by himself. It would be much better to see that. His eyes widened when he realized. Do you mean Inuzuka Hana and Azuki Yugao, 2 of the famous 4 ice queens of Konoha? What would they want with me? I swear I didn't take a peek on them while we were bathing, he said with fear in his voice, covering his manhood while Anko just blinked before she broke into fits of laughter. True, these ice queens were the only ones who were on his, not to prank, list. It may be funny to anyone else, but ask those who had their manhoods amputated because of these 4. No. You got it all wrong. They wouldn't hurt you. Not in a million years, trust me with that. They would rather commit senpuku before even thinking of that. Oh, I'll have to tell this to Kur-chan, Yugao-chan and Hana-chan for sure, she said still laughing to herself while Naruto sighed heavily in relief. But wait, Chan, you know them. I thought these 4 rarely interacted with someone except themselves, he said in confusion while Anko grinned at him. True. They prefer to remain in their own circle, so why wouldn't I know them if we talk with each other every day, she said with shining eyes while Naruto's jaw dropped for the second time. Wait. You mean to tell me that you're the 4th one, he stuttered while she nodded with a smirk before he ruffled his long spiky hair, sighing from all the surprises he's been getting these past couple of days. Wow, never thought I would meet two ice queens in person, he said in wonder while Anko sat beside him, the closeness between them making her blush, Naruto being the oblivious self. Naru-kun, but what about your curse mark? I don't think your body will be able to handle 3 types of chakra, she said before he nodded in understanding. He then started explaining her all about Ayumi, but he was shocked when she told him that she along with other 3 and the Hokage knew about Kyuubi being a female and other things seeing as Kushina had told them about. Composing himself he then told her about why Ayumi had attacked the village that day making Anko sad as she told him that they hadn't even found Kushina's dead body that day, she was probably crushed under Kyuubi or other debris. He also told her of his tenant's plan to get rid of the curse seal. So, does that mean that you're free from it? She asked while he shrugged. Curiosity eating her, she leaned across him and gasped upon seeing the same curse mark, although it was red in color. How? It's red in color. What happened? I saw that it was black yesterday, she said while Naruto's eyes widened too. I don't know, I'll have to ask her. But right now, it seems she's sleeping, probably tired from all that work, he said before she nodded worriedly at him. After both of them remaining quiet for some time, each lost in her own thoughts, Naruto smiled before he broke the silence. Nay Anko-chan, he called whereas she blushed furiously at the addition of chan. I can't believe I actually made Mitarashi Anko blush. But don't worry Anko-chan, I'll bring you to the way you used to be, I'll bring you to your own happy self in no time. And I promise you that I'll remove that curse seal of yours one day. But first it seems, I have to concentrate on Fuinjutsu along with my training, he thought before taking hold of her chin while Anko's heart started beating faster, her heart thumping in her chest as if wanting to come out and lay itself in Naruto's hand, in his care. She gulped nervously as she stared into those intense blue orbs, she was not like this damn it. This was so not her, she could kill men with just her looks, she could torture prisoners in the most vicious ways, hell not even the most handsome of guys could make her blush. But in front of him, all her insecurities just fled away like they never existed, she just couldn't retain her mask of a badkunoichi in front of him. No matter what, she couldn't help but feel happy and safe in his presence. Traces of the old Anko seemed to appear whenever he's around her. Leaning down, he kissed her softly on her cheek just like she did all those years ago, leading to a cute blush on her cheeks. He grinned his foxy grin at her, making her heart flutter while she could feel butterflies dancing around in her stomach. Naruto's grin faltered when his stomach growled loudly, making him blush in embarrassment while Anko just chuckled, a small blush still on her cheeks. It seems that whenever we meet, you get hungry, nay Naru-kun, she said while Naruto just rubbed his back head while chuckling with her. I'll get something for you as I know you hate hospital food, she said before winking at him while Naruto pouted, hey, it's not fair. You know almost everything about me but I know very little about you Anko-chan, he said while she just smiled at him. Oh, not to worry, we will have plenty of time to know each other, she said while sensually licking her middle finger, making Naruto blush before she jumped out of the window. Naruto sighed while chuckling to himself, that woman is crazy, he thought jokingly before a sad expression came across his face. Remembering his fight with Sasuke, he knew he had almost lost control on his emotions there. He couldn't allow that to happen in future. Orochimaru would have probably seen his reaction on his mother's topic, so there's no mistake he would try that tactic again in the future. I need to get control over myself, I nearly killed him there. Don't want the Ing Council on my right now, he thought while leaking a bit of killer intent at the thought of civilian council, especially those narrow-minded fools. Remembering the matter about the curse mark, he tried to contact with Ayumi. Hey Ayumi-chan, you there? Hearing no reply, he took it that she must be asleep. Taking a look around for the first time after waking up, he saw that he was in a typical two-bed room with a white curtain between them, although he was the only one currently there. He'd always hated hospitals. The smell of medicines and the trash they called food made him just want to run away and never look back. The walls, bed sheets, the doctors' and nurses' uniforms and even the floor were just plain dull white, making it seem like he was in an asylum. Although the bright sun rays coming through the window along with the peaceful sounds of chirping birds made up for it. While sitting, he flexed his arms and wrists, also noticing that he was still in his Chunin-like black vest with dark blue shinobi pants, his black sandals on the side of his bed while his white trenchcoat hung by the entrance door. He was pulled out his thoughts when the door to his room slid sideways to reveal Hiruzen in his Hokage robes along with Mei and A. Ah, I see you've awakened Naruto-kun, said Hiruzen with his grandfatherly smile while Naruto's expression turned serious. Cut the act, old man, I know you've been watching me and Anko from that crystal ball of yours, he said while smirked in amusement, whereas Hiruzen sighed. It would seem his grandson-like figure still hadn't forgiven him. Smart kid, Mei thought in amusement while outwardly she was smiling typically. It would seem you know me better than I thought, Naruto-kun, he said with a smile before Naruto retorted, yeah, never known you better than these past couple of days. Had to tighten his jaw this time not to outright laugh at the poor Hokage. Ooh, that's another knockout jab, thought our sarcastic Mizukage while Hiruzen's eyes twitched before he again spoke under the glare that Naruto was piercing him with. Ahm, it seems that you're not in a good mood, said the Hokage calmly while the blonde Jinchuriki yet again retorted, yes, thanks to you. Will you stop doing that? Yelled the famous professor using the famous big head jutsu while just outright started laughing, whereas Mei started giggling. It's not every day you see a genin rile up a cage after all. Naruto jerked his head when he heard laughing to notice that there were two other people along with Hiruzen. His eyes widened when he recognized them as the Raikage and the Mizukage. Remembering the events at the preliminaries due to his shadow clones, he immediately started thinking of an idea to apologize to them. It seems you noticed Raikage Dono and Mizukage Dono after all, said Hiruzen after taking a deep breath while Naruto greeted them immediately, albeit a bit nervously. It's nice to meet you, Raikage-sama, Mizukage-sama. Using these kind of formalities just didn't suit him. The pleasure's all mine, Naruto-san, but no need for formalities. You can call me Mei, said our busty Mizukage while Naruto blushed upon seeing her beautiful face, also remembering the stunt his idiotic clone had pulled that day. I'm sorry for what the C clones did, he suddenly said, bowing to them while sitting, whereas Raikage just waved his apology off. It's alright, Gaki, it's been a while since someone had the guts to show me the middle finger, he said, making Naruto blush in embarrassment. Meanwhile, Mei too was blushing as she remembered that event. She couldn't just flush it out of her mind for these past 2 days. Feeling Naruto's innocent gaze on her as if expecting her to say something, her blush deepened, but she managed to compose herself but replying. It's quite alright, Naruto-san, she said while thanking her long red hair, which were doing quite well to blend in with the blush before Naruto smiled brightly at her. His charming smile darkening her blush while she could feel her heart pounding. But thankfully for her, Anko came to the rescue as she appeared in the room via Shunshin with a large bowl of packed Ichiraku ramen, making Naruto drool at the sight. Oh, my apologies, Hokage-sama, Raikage-sama, Mizukage-sama. I didn't know you were here, she said with a sheepish expression while Sarutobi gave her a warm smile. Don't worry, Anko. We were just here to check up on Naruto-kun and to discuss some important things, said Sarutobi seriously while Anko got the message before nodding at him. See you later, Naru-kun, and take care, she said after putting the packed ramen on the small desk besides the table before winking at him, making his cheeks red and disappearing via leaf shunshin. You can eat it later, Naruto. We need to discuss some important things here, said the Hokage in his authoritative tone, making Naruto pout, and May had to resist glomping him right there. Ignoring his expression, he continued. First, how is your curse mark? He said, making Naruto glance at A and May. Don't worry, you can tell them everything.